Hello. In 2024, bearing in mind that we've just ended 2025, we are now in 2026. So in 2024, I wrote 217,400 words across the course of the year. Now, that's a significant number, whether for you that sounds like a big number or a small number of words, because it was the first time in my entire life that I had ever been able to calculate how many words I had written in a year, right? I'd never done it before. I couldn't have imagined doing it before, really. And I will hold that number as something that I'm really proud of for a really, really, really long time, because it's not just about what the number is, although that is a significant number of words in my humble opinion. It's about the fact that I managed to maintain the consistency of measuring. So let's talk about 2025. So hang on, I have 3 sets of freaking planners right here. I have my 2023-24, which is just 2024, really. My 2025 and my brand new shiny 2026. I also have, as you can see, there is a piece of paper in this, which is my notes for this video, because there are specific numbers and I'm not going to remember those. So across the course of 2025, if you want to know about my goals for the year, by the way, because I know that a lot of people do like a goals video as the first video back, but I'm not doing that because I already did a video on goals, which was primarily I've learned how to set goals, but it's also talking about what my goals are for 2026. So if you're interested in what my goals are, there's a whole video about that. This is about sticker chart, word count. What exactly that is, I'm going to go back over that, don't you worry. And then some statistics, numbers, and some realizations, revelations, moments, things I've noticed over the course of the second year of tracking my word count. So let's start with why am I tracking my word count and how, right? So why I'm tracking my word count is because this is my job, right? Those books on that bookshelf, those are all mine. And that's not all of my books, because I still haven't put up Unlicensed Delivery. I have a bunch of them, but I haven't put them up. Not Unlicensed Delivery. Unlicensed Delivery is the purple one. Unlicensed Travel, the sequel to Unlicensed Delivery. I haven't put it up yet. I've got a little pile of them that I plan to put up. I just haven't done it yet. So I have 7 books out. I have been publishing books since 2021. There are now 7 of them. There is very hopefully coming this year at least 1 more, but possibly 2 more, depending on some factors that I'm not in charge of right now. I have to wait for other people to get back to me about stuff before I can say what exactly is happening. But if it's not this year for Claret Brie, I'm going to go completely insane, because I have set it all up to be aligned with real world dates. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I do this for a living. This is my job. And I realised partway through last year, I realised early on in this whole process that I had no idea how long it took me to write a book. Literally no clue. I didn't know that in 2021 when I published my first book. I didn't know that in 2022 when I didn't publish any books. And I didn't know it in 2023 when I published 3 books. I didn't know it in 2024 when I started counting my word count. And that was when, part of the reason that I decided to do this in the first place was that I had no idea. And I was like, I have to know how long it takes me to write a book. I've got to have at least some vague notion on how long this is all going to take me. How long does it take me to get through this process? Because this is my job and I need to be able to give people estimates for how long it's going to take me to do stuff. Even if it's not a promise, even if it's not a guarantee, even if it's not definitely it will take definitely this long, it's an estimate. But at least I should have that, right? So I started doing the thing where I gave myself 200 stickers. No. A sticker for every 200 words. And the stickers I had to hand at the time were these really cute little heart and star ones. Let me see if I can find one. Hearts and stars. These are what I had to hand, so those are what I used. And I've just maintained that consistency more or less. Like sometimes I ran out of stickers and I had to use something else as a substitute. It's got a little bit more complicated since then, but in 2024, more or less, it was hearts and stars, unless I ran out of hearts and stars, at which point it was something else that was a stand-in for either a heart or a star. And like I said, in 2024, I wrote 217,400 brand new words between short stories and book words. So I write both short stories and books. If you've never been here before, by the way, hello. I'm Will Salisbury McGrath and I write books and short stories. Everything you need to find is in the description box below. Right next to the like and subscribe buttons if you already feel like sticking around. I write exclusively sci-fi and fantasy books, and I write primarily sci-fi and fantasy short stories as well. I share the short stories every single week on noboodles.wordpress.com for free. You can just read those. My books cost money because I need to eat. So anyway, we went into 2025. The purple planner. And in 2025, we expanded. I'm saying we. Me and the whole team here at No Poodles Everything Books, me and my 3 pets, to be fair, and my wife, expanded into also including, and I will admit that some of this is because my mum gave me a bunch of pencil stickers. So these stickers started becoming rewrite word stickers because it was helpful to have that, to have an idea of, like, in 2024 I didn't rewrite that much, I mostly wrote new words. But in 2025, because it was a heavy editing year, there was a lot of rewriting going on. And it was kind of, I'm going to say upsetting, to look at the pieces of my work and like the day that I'd worked really, really hard on, for example. Like I'd spent several hours doing rewrites and I've only added like 200 words to it. But I have rewritten like 1,000 words. And I was like, this doesn't seem very reasonable as a metric for measurement, but also it doesn't feel good. So I started adding extra stickers in. And originally they started off as just, let me see if I can find any. Originally it started off as just big ones to say that I had rewritten stuff. But yeah, eventually it became the whole thing. I plan to continue this sticker chart, and that's the how and the why. I plan to continue this sticker chart into 2026. That is why I have specifically a very pretty planner. It's the same format as all my previous ones. I know I've shown you this in my goals video, but it's the same format as all my previous ones. It's got it's reversed, but like as in all the previous ones, this has been the page with dates on it, and this has been the blank page. But that's the plan. I'm going to write stuff on the blank page, on the date, write stuff on the page with the dates on it, and then the stickers are going to go on this page because it just works really nicely for me. I like the format. I'm going to keep using it for at least a little while longer. And I will admit, before we get into the actual numbers and realizations, because we're about to jump into that section of the video, I will admit that I didn't so after I took my customary birthday to Hogmanay break for the last 2 to 3 weeks of December into January, I didn't have, like, I haven't added any of those numbers into my December word count. So I made these calculations as soon as I finished work on the last day that I was working. I did these calculations, and I know that I have subsequently written some extra words. So these numbers, they're rounded numbers. They're not perfect. Like, at no point am I claiming to be perfect, but very particularly, at no point am I claiming to be perfect about this, right? I'm not trying to pretend like these are very specific numbers, because they're not very specific numbers. It's rounded up to 200, right? Well, rather, it's rounded down to the nearest 200. So if I write 195 words, unless I can squeeze out 5 extra words, I'm not getting a sticker. So, like, these numbers are very estimated, very round, but the whole point of this isn't to have an exact, accurate, how many words have I written? It's to have an estimate and be able to begin coming up with a guideline for how long it takes me to do things. To the purpose of, with that in mind as the purpose, I have also been trying to keep more of a record of what books I am working on and how long ago I started it. So like, for example, Clara Chronicles, I started that in like August, September 2023, when I said I wasn't going to start it then. So like, with that in mind, I'm looking at that and looking at how long it's taken me to write, for example, just the first book of that, or like, because I'm writing it weirdly, and we'll get to that later in the year. But yes, so here is my page of 2025 Sticker Talk conclusions. The number that everyone is most excited to share, as per usual, I'm going to share it now, which is 242,000 words, which, as you may have noticed, is slightly higher than 2024, which I find very interesting because it's interesting. So of those, the book words were 170,800 and the short story words were 71,200. I also break that down by quarters, or rather added up by quarters. Each quarter, I've been sharing it on YouTube. I don't think anybody cares, but I've been sharing every quarter on YouTube except for the last one because it's too hard. So in quarter one, it was 56,800 words. In quarter two, it was 40,200 words. In quarter three, it was 68,000 words. And in quarter four, it was a whopping 77,000 words, which is so many. And then if you break it down by half years, it was 97,000 words in the first half of the year and 145,000 words in the second half of the year, which is like, what? How is it that much more in the second half of the year? But by estimations, my average word count per day is 1,522. Now, please bear in mind that I'm very specifically not saying that I'm writing 1,522 words per day, because A, that doesn't fit my 200 words per sticker quota, does it? But B, I'm writing, so like there are some days where I'm writing 0 words that are counted in the day chart for this, and there are some weeks that look like this. I mean, even actually within this week, you can see there's a lot of stickers. Just FYI, these numbers, by the way, they don't include these ones, but like there's a lot of stickers. And then on this day, there's a lovely 3 stickers and nothing else. Because why? Oh, because I was busy doing other stuff. It's usually the case. Or like, let me find one that doesn't have a bunch of pencil stickers. Or like we have days like this one day, this is another day, and this is the day after. Like, it's definitely, I'm not writing 1,000 words a day or 1,500 words per day. I am writing a random assortment of words that then averages out to 1,500. And that's a really valuable thing for me to learn, because the reason that I average it out to like what's an average daily word count is that then over the course of a month, I can estimate how much I actually am writing over the course of a month, even though it's not actually per day. Does that make sense? I know what I'm trying to say, and I don't think I'm saying it. So anyway, I worked on a grand total of 11 books this year, which is actually lower than the number I keep telling people. I keep telling people it's 14, but apparently it's 11. So that is I worked on Unlicensed Travel, which came out in 2025. I worked on the 4 Clara Chronicles novels. I worked on a thing called Monster House, which was in March or April last year. And I talked about that. There's a video about it. I worked on a secret project that I'm not telling anyone about yet. I worked on a Claret Companion, a different Claret Companion, book called The Icarus, which is based on a short story that I wrote in 2023. 2024? I don't know. And I worked on another Interplanetary Alliance book. One more. Which, the reason I say 14 is because I'm actually, like, on average working on about 4 of those at a time, but I didn't make any additions to those other 3 of those in 2025. Of those 11 books, I finished drafts, so like reached an end point, even if it wasn't the end, for 5 of them, including, of course, Unlicensed Travel, which reached its end. but I haven't reached the feedback point for any of the other books as yet. So even though I've reached an ending, it's not feedback worthy yet, so it's going to go through another draft. And here are some of the things I discovered. Here are some of the things I discovered. Thing number one is that after finishing a draft, regardless of what state of draft it is, so like whether it's first, second, fourth, fifth, feedback, whatever draft, I have a low word count for about a week after. Sometimes 2 weeks after. And I went looking to find out what that's about, because what is that about? And the answer to that question is it's actually really normal. It's actually really normal. A lot of people get this where they get to the end of a really big project, and every draft of a book is a really big project, really. But they get to the end of a really big project, and then they just kind of get this like wash of, and like a lot of people get the wash of like happy, joy, whatever. But like a majority of people also, I don't get the wash of joy part, but majority of people also, or instead, get the feeling of like tired, like you've been spending a lot of your energy on this thing, and now that it's done, you're tired about it. And it's the same concept of a thing as when you've been excited about something that's upcoming, like a holiday or a wedding or Comic-Con. And then you go to the thing and it's exciting. And then you come home after the fact and you're just down in the dumps about it, and you just feel so bad. And it's like, sometimes it's that you overexerted yourself, but more often than not, it's because you had this thing that you were really looking forward to, the end of a draft, a holiday, Comic-Con. And then you get after it and you're like, all of my motivation that was focused on this, it's got nowhere to go. And you just feel quite sad. Like, that's really normal. Don't worry about it. I was worried. That's why I looked it up. I was worried. I was like, why does this happen? Why am I getting these 2 weeks of very little after I finished a draft? Surely that should be like, boy, jump into your other ideas. This is exciting. But no, apparently it's very normal. Some people only have it for like a day. I apparently have it for a week or two, which is still a really normal amount of time to have this, apparently. Like, it is so normal. I also discovered that mixing an early draft with a printed read-through draft or like editing draft, is really helpful. And it produces more words on both sides of that equation, which is really cool. So I had noticed in sort of September, because I started reading a series of books in September, and I was quite like, I want to read this every day. And then I ran out because it reached the end of the series. But I had noticed that reading every afternoon, for example, produced more words in the morning, which is pretty cool. I didn't expect for that to continue when I was reading my own work for editing purposes, but it did. Interesting. I'm not saying this is advice. This is not advice. I'm just sharing some interesting facts, and I'm sorry if you can hear all the cars outside. And then my average word count for short stories shared is 1,045 words. If you divide it, this is again, by average, I mean like I took my total word count and divided it by the number of WordPress posts I made. Not all of which are short stories, but I'm not going through and counting exactly which ones are stories and which ones are like all of the other stuff that I do instead of short stories, because they're so infrequent. Like, the vast majority of what gets posted to nopoodles@wordpress.com is short stories. Sometimes it's things like a roundup or a top 10, but the vast majority of it is short stories. So I just count them all as short stories for these kind of calculations. But yeah, so it's 1,045 words on average, which, like, I really want to call them bite-sized stories because they're very short, right? Like, it doesn't take very long to read, and that is purposeful. It's so you can fit it into your average day-to-day life. Like, is I don't want to take hours of your time to read this short story, because a lot of people don't have hours of time. Like when I started sharing them back in 2017, I didn't have a lot of time. I was working on supply at the time, and I was very much like trying to wrangle this thing into a very confusing schedule. And it did not get less confusing after that. So yeah, it's very much like, if you want to be able to read something short and easy, that's what they're there for. So in case you're interested in timeline wise, how long it takes me to finish a thing, I started Unlicensed Travel sometime in 2023, and I published it in 2025, which is 2 years. And I went back to try and figure out when I started other pieces. So like Welcome to Humanity, I started in 2018, but it was the second half. So really I started the book version of it in 2019, and I published that in 2023. So obviously that is 4 years. So we've got 2 years, we've got 4 years. Unlicensed Delivery was my lockdown book. I wrote the first draft of it in lockdown, and then I just sat on it for a really long time. So I wrote it in 2020, I published it in 2023. So that is 3 years. But again, I did sit on it. And Not That Kind of Dandy, I started in 2019 and published in 2024. So that's 5 years. And Mary Ellen Breaking the Chaos, I'm not counting in this whole grand scheme of questions because it's complicated. But Mary Ellen Finding the Air, which is a sequel, I started in 2021 and I published in 2023, so that's 2 years. So the conclusions I've come to, why are you flashing lights outside my house? So the conclusion I've come to about how long it takes me to write a book is anywhere between 2 and 5 years. And you know what? That's actually really helpful, because does it feel suck that it could take, like, it's probably going to take me 2 to 5 years to publish any of the books that I've started, any of the books that I'm excited about now, and any of the books that I've like want to start talking about immediately. Yeah, it does suck. It feels suck. But I am almost 3 years into Clarity Chronicles. Like, it will have been 3 years by September. And that means that I can look at these numbers and start thinking, this is probably nearly ready to go. I'm really sorry about those lights. It's so annoying. I have no idea what's going on. This is probably nearly ready to go. I started my Winter King thing in 2021. And that was 4 years last year. So that's also nearly ready to go, surely, right? Like, by averages, these things should be approaching readiness. And to be fair, a lot of them I did write a draft and then I just sat on it for yonks. But that is part of the process for me, because I work on... Okay, let me explain my process of working on books, actually, really quickly. So my process of working on books, generally speaking, is that I'll have what I call a primary project. So the primary project is the thing that I want to finish next, right? And it's the thing where if I have time to write, I will go to that primary project. This is my golden ticket, right? This is the best thing I ever figured out how to do. Having a primary project, so that if you're like, oh, I've got some energy to write, I've got some time to write, what do I want to work on? What do I want to work on is not a question you have to ask yourself. You know what you want to work on, because what you want to work on is the primary project. If you have a great idea for any other project, you can absolutely write that down. Or I can. This is my system. I can absolutely write that down. I don't have a problem working on something else at random that's not my primary project. Or if my primary project is on editing, or it needs to sit for a while because specific reasons, that's the thing that you have to do with books, like bread dough, then I can work on something else, right? So I always have a primary project, and I usually have a secondary project as well. And I try to swap genres for that because it makes my life easier. But it can also be a swap of subgenre that can work just as well. Like, so for example, jumping to an IPA book, which is sci-fi, And then even jumping to the Icarus from that, because the Icarus is more of a space fantasy than a sci-fi. I mean, it's kind of both. It's complicated. Or like jumping from a high fantasy setting to an urban fantasy setting, or a portal fantasy setting, or so on and so forth. Like, these changes make life so much easier because you don't get bogged down in the like stuck on the same thing over and over again kind of thing. But yeah, that is primary project. It's the dream. But because I have a primary project that I'm working on, a lot of the time I'll have an idea for something, I'll start writing it, and then I'll just have to sit on it for quite a long time because it's not the primary project. And like, obviously, like I said, it takes maybe 2 years to write a book. Like, all of my best concentrated effort, so Mary Ellen Finding the Air, Unlicensed Travel, those were my two. Those both took 2 years to get from start to finish, idea to publication, 2 years. So the quickest I think I can probably write and publish a book is 2 years. And that's if that book gets to be my primary project for the vast majority of that time. Which is what happened with Mary Ellen Finding the Air and what happened with Unlicensed Travel. So with that in mind, I have these estimates now. I have these guidelines. Does that mean I've made any goals? Nope. Well, I have made some goals. I have a whole video about my goals. But I haven't made any like book writing goals other than to write. Because I don't have enough data yet, I don't think. I think that the amount of data that I have over the last 2 years is very, very helpful to start seeing general shapes and being able to kind of guesstimate things like, oh, okay, so on average it takes me 2 to 5 years to finish and publish a book. Cool, 2 to 5 years. But I don't think that it's like I don't think I have enough data to start making actual plans about. Like, having an estimate is very different from having a plan or making some kind of thing you're trying to reach for, which is what a goal is, isn't it? I could have just said goal. Making some kind of goal that you're reaching for is a different experience than being able to estimate, okay, well, this is probably nearly done. So yeah, that's my word count for the year. I'm just going to say it again so that inevitably when I come back to this video next year, because I'm like, at the end of this year when I'm trying to figure out how many words did I write in 2025, which is what I did about 2024 words. I wrote 242,000 words, brand new words in 2025. And that is a number that I'm really, really proud of, because as always, the goal is to write. Any words are good words. And with that as the way that this works for me, I got to 242,000 words. That's like a lot of words. I will have a more organized video. This was not organized. I will have a more organized video probably in 2 weeks' time when I'm back, where I'm going to be hopefully talking about how to read more books in 2026, if that is something that you would like to aspire towards. And let me know if you achieved anything big in 2025. And please do bear in mind that by big, I mean what you consider big, not what anyone else might consider big. If your big thing is, I got out of bed every single day in 2025, that's huge, and I'm super, super proud of you. If your huge big thing from 2025 was that you, I don't know, scaled a mountain, that's huge. I'm super impressed. Well done, you. You know, like, this is a celebrate and elevate space. It doesn't matter how tiny it feels to like, or how tiny you think it's going to feel like to everybody else. What your biggest achievement in 2025 is amazing. And I am super impressed, regardless of what it might have been, regardless of how easy it might have seemed to anyone else. I don't care. I don't care if it was like easy by someone else's metric, because you're not someone else. You're you. And your biggest achievement is something that you worked really hard on. Congratulations. Bye.